What happened in practice for the Las Vegas Grand Prix? Hello everybody and welcome to Tom Bellingham's hotel room. It is 4:14 in the morning. I've already been to sleep about 4 hours ago and woke up to the glorious sounds of Formula One cars out on track. Now we're obviously very, very lucky, Tommy, to be in such an amazing hotel room which actually has a view of the track. But my goodness me, I can't quite process the fact that cars were on track until 4 this morning.
Yes, particularly, as we'll get into this, we were some of the rare lucky people that actually got to see it because everyone else was forced to go home, which is absolutely shocking, but I'm sure that rant will happen later.
It certainly will. Of course, we were actually at the track for free practice one, and we were, hopeful for some bit of carnage, bit of chaos, but it was chaos, but of the different kind. Let's talk about the drain cover because that's obviously the big thing, the big talking point for free practice one, and just generally for this Friday practice. And I also apologise for my croaky voice. I don't know if it's because I've been to sleep or if it's because I've been ill in the last few days. Maybe it's a bit of everything. But the drain cover, Carlos Sainz, going over, and it was, I think, 8-9 minutes into free practice one. And I obviously immediately seeing that with the Ferrari stop on the side of the track that it was a Ferrari thing,
Of course it
Ferrari
was.
being Ferrari.
Yeah.
They're going to bounce back after Brazil, and then boom, Carlos Sainz after 9 minutes is not in free practice anymore. But it was in fact because of the drain covers coming up. Look, I know they can't put Formula One cars on the track. They can't simulate that amount of suction that would come under the car, especially in these, I guess, newer era of Formula One cars with the ground effect and how much downforce is produced through the rear of the underside of the car. But also, we've had drain cover problems before. And
Yes.
we had it again.
We sure have. I think that's almost seems like the main argument of the chaos, but there's a lot more chaos to get into later. But the fact that the drain covers have come up, it's almost like that classic street circuit thing. We've seen it a few times. Baku 2019 is the one. I remember we were also there. Maybe it's us. But yeah, on a new track, it's so much hype around this race. So much build-up, so much anticipation.
Hype
everything.
From F1, I think maybe
Yeah,
the fans
that's true.
not so hyped.
Well, we'll get into that as well. But my word, just make sure that the drain covers are sealed. And the solution shows that they weren't, and they maybe even can't do it properly.
Yes, because they had to use quick-drying cement, didn't they, to essentially fix that problem. And I also read online as well that the track inspection is supposed to happen 24 hours before the event taking place, and that didn't happen, and they had to do it early in the morning or whatever it was. And so within that time frame, it felt maybe perhaps slightly rushed, but that's obviously an assumption there. But it's all kind of pointing towards maybe Vegas not being ready, even though it's been, for Vegas residents, very difficult, and they've been here for 4 or 5 months building and causing lots of chaos. They still weren't quite ready for Formula One action.
When we had our first podcast about this on the Monday, where we did the Everything You Need to Know, and you mentioned like the first thing you thought when Vegas was announced is, how are they going to do this? And I think now it's quite clear that it's very, very difficult.
Now, one thing I did want to talk about, which was a press conference that they held with the team principals, and Toto Wolff's particular remarks about being asked around, is this a black eye for Formula One? And I've not seen him triggered like this ever. Like the amount he backed Vegas and the idea of it and the concept was almost like he was the person that had created the race itself. Like, I've never seen him so animated and be like, oh, this is a great thing, and the amount of hard work that's gone into it, and this, that, and the other. And yeah, there has been a lot of hard work to go into it, but that's not what the question is. It's the fact that the Formula One wasn't ready, and you have all of this hype, and then for them to not be able to deliver a free practice one, to then have to do an FP2 at 2:30 in the morning, sending fans home as well. How is it not at least a little bruise on the eye?
For me, that just screams that he is going to end up in a high position within Liberty Media and Formula One day and doesn't want to absolutely roast them. I can kind of see a little bit of, say it was just the drain covers, right? And yes, we've had it before. It's not ideal, but there would be a tiny bit of me that would be like, because let's be honest, like there are a lot of people, I'm not one of these people, and it's frustrating because I wasn't one of these people, but I think a lot of people want this race to fail because it's like very not classic Formula One, it's not a classic track, they're going after this new audience, it's very different. But the fact is, it's not just that. It's the drain cover, then it's the fact that we didn't know when FP2 was even going to start. Then you had the ridiculous scenario of them just like looking like they're filling the drain holes with cement. Then it took so long. You like you say, you went to bed. I was up, like waiting to see when this session was going to resume. And then the fact that it was taking so long, and it wasn't till about 1 o'clock, I think they said it was going to start at 2. And then at 1:30, they just decided, no, you've all got to go home. I'm sorry, but the poor people that have maybe been here all day and waited all this time have not got to see anything. I had a tweet in a reply that someone said that they essentially drove 10 hours to get here and they've seen 9 minutes of F1. Like, that is outrageous.
Yeah, this is the biggest takeaway for me as well, is the fans.
Yeah.
And not even on just a normal race weekend, you know, you look back to Spa, for example, when it was washed out and you really felt for the fans then. This race weekend, the amount, the price point that Formula One has put this at has priced out a lot of fans. And that is probably one of the main reasons why there is this whole, I want this to fail, because they are just pricing it at a ridiculous point. But then to send them home, like, I feel bad because my mum and sister, right, they're here as well. And I was like, oh, look, the tickets have gone down a little bit. So I spent, I think, 300 quid for them to get in and watch practice. There was 9 minutes of it. They then put a statement out, Las Vegas circuit, basically in a roundabout way saying, well, your ticket's still valid, so we're going to deliver as much as we can, which is basically jog on if you think you're getting a refund, which it just sounds typical F1 and typical circuits and trying to ensure that that they don't lose any money. And especially in this regard, I suppose, because F1 themselves have paid to put this on. So I feel a little bit of annoyance, but I can only imagine how much further it goes for some of these people, as you say, that have travelled so far, committed so much of their time, their money to be here, and for them to turn around and say, no, you have to leave now, it must be gut-wrenching for them. Now, we were saying before we started recording that there was particular reasons that they decided to do this, traffic and whatever.
Yeah, apparently they were just concerns over, like, I think they just said logistical problems that it would cause. But
sorry, is that not up to adults to make that decision if they've spent all that money and also will not get probably refunded for any of that experience?
Yeah, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of fans that would have just gone, well, I'll take the hit, and if I have to queue in traffic for an hour to get home, I would rather actually see Formula One cars that I've paid to see. And maybe this, without going into, maybe this is something we need to go into later, but like, there's not a lot of people here. The grandstands were empty at the start of FP1, and I was looking at it thinking, this is the first race of 10, and it's empty now. This just shows that they have priced out real fans and the locals, so no wonder like the grandstands aren't anywhere near full.
Yes, this question from New Romantics. What was the vibe like at the track in comparison to other races you've been to? Now, you know, I think we were both very quick to judge how empty it felt. Fairly so as well. You know, some people will go, oh, well, you know, it's a Thursday and this, that and the other. I'm sorry, but Formula One want to make as much money as possible. This is one day of the 3. It's not like, oh, it's a free pass, because you know, they've spent all of this money. They're trying to claw it back by raising the ticket prices, and they haven't even sold it for the first day of the first event of this new modern Las Vegas Formula One venture. And so, yeah, on one side, I'm like, okay, wow, it did really feel empty. On the other side, I'll sort of wait to judge fully
100%.
until I see tomorrow, especially, of course, it being a Friday night, and then obviously into Saturday as well.
It's very clear there's a lot of teething problems at the moment.
Absolutely.
To say the least.
Because my main gripe is the fact that I want to be in the atmosphere of a Formula One weekend, which is where the people are, which is where the fan zone is.
That's what they've been trying to do, like Vegas hype, like it's all this amazing hype, but we didn't really see many people.
It felt empty. It literally felt like some sort of test day when we were walking around. It was unbelievable. Let's now talk about Carlos Sainz a little bit more, because of course he hit the drain cover, sustained a huge amount of damage, having to change many different parts of his power unit. Question from PamCat30. Should Carlos have got a penalty, and should Ferrari and Alpine have to pay for the damage to their cars? It was completely out of their control. If this happened early in the year, it could have affected the cost cap. I mean, it could affect the cost cap anyway, couldn't it? It feels incredibly harsh for Carlos to have not only have all of that damage, Ferrari having to incur the costs, but also having to take a 10-place penalty into a race where Ferrari looks so good. Like, they look quick, as we kind of expected. Right. The stewards and the FIA said themselves in their document that there's no way that they can bend the rules to essentially, not give them a penalty. So they give them a penalty, but then there's like another layer to it. It's quite confusing, as is Formula One. But yes, the main thing is that Carlos gets a penalty. The FIA can't do anything about it, which I think is just complete and utter BS.
Yeah, true, but I do kind of get where they're coming from, that even though it's incredibly harsh and it's not his fault, it could open up a weird precedent where how do you judge things that are their fault, and then it could open up a can of worms of like, oh, a marshal dropped a flag and someone ran over it, and then do you claim for that and all this other stuff? So then it could start to get a bit messy. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Carlos isn't the most unlucky driver in this weekend. The fact that Ferrari are looking so good, but the fact that he's starting with a 10-second penalty already, which isn't... 10 place. 10 second would probably be better, knowing their speed, but 10 place is pretty bad.
So yes, pain, as always, for Ferrari fans.
We'll just get into FP2 in general, I guess, because that's where we actually saw some cars driving.
We did at 2:30 in the morning. Of course, it was broadcast. We thought for a long time that actually it probably wasn't even maybe going to go ahead. Maybe they were going to do some sort of super practice tomorrow. All kinds of things, which I thought would maybe have been better somehow to maybe not have run as late as they did. Not just from a viewing perspective, but also as a sending drivers out at 2:30 in the morning till 4 in the morning to be driving.
It was so bizarre to be hearing Formula One cars and to be on this time zone, like hearing them out the window at 3:30 at night. Like, what on earth is going on?
Let's talk about Formula One now then, shall we? And actual what we saw in free practice 2. And look, some good news. Ferrari looking good. My God, Charles Leclerc, Ferrari looking just like we saw, very fast. I think my one crazy prediction could be looking very saucy, because we saw lap after lap after lap, and they were building up. And of course, some of that is just getting acclimatized with the track and whatnot, but also there's definitely something to say about the cooler conditions and the fact it's a new track surface where the tyres constantly build up, because they just kept going faster and faster and faster.
Yeah, they were very, very good. And the fact that Leclerc just seemed to always be top of the session, that was what we were kind of joking about that Max does, right? Where he just keeps doing laps and they're like a second quicker than everyone, half a second quicker. That was Charles Leclerc today. Like, the Ferrari just looked absolutely brilliant. And do you wonder how much of that has been the fact that not only that massive straight that we said, because they were good at Monza, but the fact that they can switch on the tyres in colder conditions. I think it is meant to even be a little bit colder as well tomorrow. That could suit Ferrari even more. And then we've also seen, weirdly, like Haas, not like amazing, but like the fact that Hülkenberg was up in P7. It's going to be interesting to see how representative like all these times are, because it still looks a little bit all over the place and jumbled. Obviously, you doubt Max would be 6th and behind someone like Bottas, but you never know because, yeah, it's a shame that the race has had to go like this for like all the fans and everything. But if you take that aside and go into the race, like and qualifying and stuff, it does look like it's still a little bit unknown and going to be an exciting one.
Yeah, I think unknown is probably the key word for this. You know, you look at this, and of course I'm going to get excited for Ferrari, but that pecking order doesn't look like it's particularly sorted out. I think a lot of teams are on different run plans. McLaren looking, you know, if we're taking this as gospel, pretty poor. Same with Mercedes, same with Alpine, as you predicted. And even Williams not looking that great. But the gaps are large. You know, we're talking 1.5 seconds in that sort of
Surely
7th all the way down to sort of 14th. So it seems like it's a bit bigger of a gap than we usually see. And probably when you look at the track, it's probably not actually, you wouldn't think it would cause that big of a gap between the teams, especially when we have seen such close margins in the last few weekends. It is 4:45 in the morning. And I believe we are wrapping up this rather interesting first video. We did not expect any of this to happen.
I want to go to bed.
I can tell Tommy's literally falling asleep. So am I. We probably want to put this camera tripod down before the cleaner comes in the morning. Otherwise, she's going to be thinking something
I can show you something cool
strange
though for people watching the video.
What's been happening in this room. And yes, so let's turn off the lights first. There we go. Oh, now you can't see us. And have a look at this backdrop.
Ta-da!
We're very, very lucky. Thank you to everybody that watches and listens.
Yes.
We can't believe that we have these views. And yes, we'll leave it there.
Bye.
We're waving if you can't see us. You might be able to with the shine off the laptop. Bye.
Bye.
Bedtime.